One of the most beautiful moments in Wizard101 is that exact moment you summon a spell for the first time after the end of a super long spell quest and feel just a little bit more powerful. And frankly, could you blame me for feeling that? There's nothing more hype than being called to your professor, doing a whole quest, going and revisiting the world that you were just at, and learning a whole new spell with a whole story behind it for the first time. I would argue that spell quests comprise most of the lore you even know about your school to begin with, and they were a really big part of how the wizard actually interacted with their spells early on in the game. Today, I wanted to talk about what I think is one of the biggest missed opportunities currently in Wizard101, something that truly holds them back, and it represents a decision that they made, like a shift, that I don't think that they should have done ever. Let's use an example to show how truly different things are now when it comes to learning spells on Wiz. When you hit level 48 as an ice, you learn about the actual lore of what a frost giant is. It's an entire god of ice, and you go through trials and tribulations to even have the ability to summon him. And yet now, if you have a new spell that you have to learn, you don't learn it from a professor. You don't even talk to anybody or do a quest for it. Nowadays, you just walk through the newest world, and eventually, if you go far enough in the quest line, congratulations, you've learned your new spell. You've even been given the spellments to upgrade it by the end of the world. Spells feel so automatically given these days that I feel like they've lost a lot of the magic that made spells so special to begin with. I think this started, by the way, well before Caramel. I think they started doing this like around Azteca, but I think their decision to make spells world themed actually really destroyed what I think made the spell special to begin with. Has every world themed spell suffered under what I'm calling, a failure? Not really, I guess. I feel like, there are examples of when they theme a spell around a world, it's not terrible. I think a good example of this is actually the Lemuria spells, because yes, they are all this weird tentacle dude that you just met, but at least you know that the tentacle dude is powerful, and there's this idea that he's, a nothingness that is taking up space in a world of something. The fact that he's, taking the role of a bunch of powerful creatures in a bunch of schools, that's actually not that crazy to me. That actually works a little bit, and honestly, you almost feel like there's an in-world explanation for why the spell is powerful and why it might even fit into your school. But spell quests evoke a totally other feeling than just, getting something that's related to the world. It's a different feeling altogether. I think the idea of getting a new spell quest every world was that, you're getting more powerful. You're learning something that's even higher up in the hierarchy of your school. You beat Dragonspire, congratulations. Now you can summon a god of storm. You beat Celestia, congratulations. You can now summon a storm leviathan from the deepest and darkest depths of the ocean. Right? Like, the stakes get higher and higher. Now you don't even have to do a spell quest, and your spell is some whack-ass gobbler that eats a cookie and then farts on your opponent. Let's talk about the goofiness of a lot of spells these days. I think a real risk you run when you tie the spells too much to the world they're in is the fact that if it's a goofy world, you're gonna end up with spells that cannot be taken seriously. And it's fine. Not everything has to be serious. Not everything has to be crazy intense when it comes to summoning a spell. But I think it really just starts making no sense when random ass characters just come out and do stuff that, barely even relate to the school. Like, what is a dog exploding a barrel of, explosives? What does that have to do with life at all? You don't get any explanation. And while that lack of seriousness in the spell itself isn't that crazy, it's not gonna be it's not gonna end the game as a result of it existing, I think it does cut into the immersion a little bit. And I think that's a real problem that they need to address. Now, I think the real question that follows is, why have they made this shift to begin with, right? They were making spell quests for every world. Why did they shift it? To me, the only, reasoning that makes sense is the fact that the spell quests actually got very difficult. Now, I might just be one of those weirdos that actually, just says this to say it, but I actually enjoyed the difficulty of spell quests, so I guess that argument doesn't really apply to me. But I do remember, I don't know what wizard it was on, but in Azteca especially, I was struggling a little bit because it was like a 1v3 fight, I think, against like, I think it's for your like rank 10 spell. Like you got to fight like a 1v3 against like a fire mob. Like that's pretty difficult. That's pretty challenging. If you're a casual, you're not going to beat it that easily. I assumed that they got feedback that it was too difficult and decided, you know what, why go through all the effort of a spell quest in general? Let's just give the wizards a spell when they go through the worlds or they go through a dungeon in the case of Darkmoor and call it a day. And if that is the reason for it, I kind of do get it. You don't want to make a game that, you know, the PvE anyways, you don't want to make it so hard as a baseline that like people can't learn spells. But I still feel like there are ways to balance difficulty and the actual like idea that you're working towards something like a spell. I feel like there is something there. And if difficulty is the reason they got rid of it, I don't think it's a valid enough reason to remove something that made Wiz feel a little bit more special. On the flip side, there are a lot of benefits to the current system that they currently have, right? You don't have to do a spell quest, so you get the spells pretty much easily. So you don't have to do all the extra work if all you really want is just a spell that does something cool. And I need to clarify, right? While my critique is on how you acquire the spells, what the spells actually do, they have not gotten less hype at all. I think while a marshmallow being a powerful fire spell is kind of stupid, the fact that it's doing over 1,000 damage and doing 3 like overtime traps for 35, that's huge. I want that spell immediately. And I do think there's value in that, right? Like the fact that you get spells mad quick, like in Novus, you get it right at the beginning. It's a whole new concept. There's arch mastery. That's really, really cool. It's just, I feel like it doesn't always have to be like that because then you start losing other things that used to work as well. In general, I think my TLDR though is that I do want more spells that actually feel like they belong to that school and they feel like a creature maybe that's up in the stakes. Like that feeling, I just don't think I've had it in so long. And I don't know if y'all been following, but there have been recent leaks where they seem to be still continuing down the path of not doing that, where like, you know, they're bringing back characters in the form of spells. The Divim leak, a lot of people are saying it's just a spell, right? And while Divim is a really, really cool character, to bring him back just for a spell, it is kind of silly to me. I don't know. I feel like what about him even makes him like a storm spell, for example? Like we haven't learned anything about him that would make him make sense as a storm spell. I don't know. I guess this is where y'all weigh in, but what do you guys think? Do you guys think that, you know, like spells that, you know, actually have a story behind them, even if it is a little bit, like those kinds of things, those are like, you know, a thing of the past? And do you think this is just the route that they're going? Why do you guys think that Wiz has decided to take this route? There's clearly been a change and they've clearly done it on purpose. And which like, you know, way of acquiring spells do you prefer? I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. I assume there'll be people that agree with me. I'm sure there's a lot of people that just want to get spells and they'll just disagree with me because they don't want to do quests like that like they used to. Definitely weigh in. I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. I'll see y'all soon. Stay awesome, y'all. And yeah, y'all.